Hi everyone, Dean from Real Estate Dynamics, and we're just going to have this raw and real chat, and I've got Teri with me today who's from Gilroy and Associates, who are the valuers, and there were two words that we talked about, and they were risk and demand.
Yes.
So talk to me about that. So the demand, we talked about the value of rent rolls that are closer knit and closer to where they currently are is a high...
And also high earning portfolios.
Earning.
Yep. Ultimately, in valuation, the bottom line, I guess you could say, the end result is really the combination of two factors, and that's demand for that type of business and the qualities of that business and the risk of that type of business. So when you're looking at demand,
risk meaning risk of loss.
Risk of loss, or another way of putting it is risk of being able to maintain that income.
Okay.
So that goes back to the very, very base of valuation theory. So with a rent roll portfolio, a high demand portfolio is one that's well run, has a high level of income, generally closely held to the office from the, in the main part. There are exceptions obviously to all of these, but they're the main.
General.
When it comes to risk, the portfolios that have a lower property to landlord ratio would be considered a lower risk portfolio. A portfolio that has been established for quite a while is often considered lower risk because you've got landlords that have a bit more loyalty and have obviously been satisfied with the management that they've had. And then if you've got a portfolio where you've got high arrears, as we've discussed before, there is more risk attached to losing those managements because your landlord's not going to be overly happy if he's not
getting paid,
maintaining
not getting his money.
investment, maximising their investment.
So we've talked about the risk as far as risk of losing some of those, which arrears came back down to from there, was back down to what their systems are in place and making sure that what's on paper is what's in the system and it's what's being used. Risk-wise, as far as, hence the landlord is happy with the service he's getting, so he's going to be more loyal, so he's going to stay, so that income is going to continue.
Yes.
And then demand-wise was, what is the demand, and regional as opposed to metro?
Yes, absolutely. Well, economic factors also can affect demand very substantially, and that's been happening in Queensland portfolios, particularly over the last 3 to 4 years. There's substantially different demand in different regions, and that will affect the valuation as well. So that's an important part of what goes into the valuation.
Majority of people that are looking at this and what they have is their own portfolio. They can't move currently where they are, so they then need to maximise for themselves. And we've talked about that we did five tips over 5 days, and one of those was we talked about making sure that all that's on their Form 6s in Queensland or on their management fee is actually being charged and is in the system, and it's the same as what's in the system. If they're charging 6% or 7 or 8, that's what's in there plus GST. And that's the same. So that's something they could do right now, even though if they couldn't move their portfolio.
And then the bonus to that is you're maximising your income at the same time. You're ensuring your systems are accurate, you're maximising your own income.
That's a perfect point. You're getting more money right now, and you're adding to what the value is.
So it's a win-win, absolutely. For sure.
But it's a critical one that so many have a tendency to overlook, that they haven't, or there's been a change in staffing, and one signed it up and came in and they left and it wasn't put into the system right?
Definitely. It's as a general rule, you find if you're maximising the income for your portfolio, as in through structural efficiencies, accuracy, you will be reducing the risk of not being able to maintain that income.
And increasing your value,
like we just talked. Your value, yes.
So therefore then, demand-wise, how can they, because they can't move again from where they are, increasing their demand, I have a bias there that, quite often we'll take on a management and then we service the heck out of the management, and then we get another one, but the other one is out in the middle of Timbuktu, that do you knock that back, or do you don't go for as many of those ones that are so far away?
Yep. It really comes down to a management choice, but I would probably say for those managements that you might get that are further away,
Yes.
you may need to negotiate a higher management fee to make it still profitable to do it. If you've got,
This is really interesting because Mr. Landlord, and we talked previously about Mr. Landlord that you've done a good job. Now he's got 5 or 6, but he also is hitting you up for a discount because you've got 5 or 6. But that doesn't mean to say you do any less work, because you've still, and sometimes you might do more because one of them or two of them are further away.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've really got it. Just because somebody offers a management doesn't always mean it's worth taking it.
That's a really good point.
And it doesn't
A
mean
difficult
it's
one.
It is difficult, and it's very difficult for a lot of people to
Yeah.
turn away a management. But you've got to look at not only the income side of it, you've got to look at what it's going to cost you
Profitability,
to maintain that and do a good job of it. Because
Yep.
if you take it on and you do a terrible job and
Then you
the
lose
landlord
more.
leaves you anyway, you've spent time and money on servicing it, and you end up with no actual asset.
So going forward, we've talked about the demand side of it, the risk side of it. I guess as far as if you could leave them with what's just maybe 1 or 2 points of simple things that quite often are overlooked.
Simple things. Well,
I think one of them you talked about as far as making sure what's on your management fee, your
management agreement
system.
is being charged. That's very
Yeah.
simple. Really, I guess you can go through and do an audit of your portfolio, which is time consuming, but you'd probably be surprised
Valuable.
at how many things are in your management agreements that you have the right to charge and you have not been charging, and therefore missing out on valuable income.
Yep.
And I guess the other simple thing, I think, which has really good results for everybody involved, is make sure you look after those arrears. Maintain your return for your investors, which is maintaining the return for your landlords, because ultimately you need them to stay with you to keep your income going, and to increase the value of your portfolio.
Well, that's awesome. So if you've got any more questions, please reach out. I'll have the link in here as well so that you can reach out to Teri from Gilwright & Associates. And that's all for today. Thanks,
Thank
Teri.
you.
See ya.